Welcome, everybody, to Taurus Tech Talk. This is Robert Parsons. I have my counterpart, Corey Church. And we also have joining us again, Mr. Marc Harrison with Crestron. Thanks again for being here, Marc.
Thank you guys for having us again, man. We really appreciate it. It's good to be back here in the Taurus studios and talking about what we enjoy and what we do for a living.
So what's new, man? Before we get into our subject matter, what's going on with you these days?
Well, we just got back from Masters training,
Nice.
Which is our certified programmers seminar, if you will, conference that we had this year up in Connecticut. It was a lot of fun. Probably about 1,100 folks showed up for that.
Well, it sounds like you're trying to expand that past just programmers, right?
Absolutely.
Network professionals, design engineers, etc.
Yeah, you know, years ago, really the Crestron programmer was the key, and still is for the most part, the key to success behind Crestron systems. And one thing, as the industry has continued to evolve and products have become, I don't want to say easier to deploy, but less labor intensive to deploy as far as the configuration, the programming side, we looked at it and said, look, we need these certified programmers are very, very important to us. They're an incredible key part of our success, but so are the design engineers for these companies, you know. So are the end users. A lot of end users out there now that are actually making and doing their own designs and bringing those to our customers. So opened it up.
We're seeing that quite a bit too.
Are you?
Yeah. For our larger partners, they're deploying AV professionals internally to kind of help be the go-between, essentially.
You know, the end users are becoming more and more educated every day about what it is that the audio video can bring them in their spaces. And with that, it's making it more and more complex for us on the manufacturing side, because now all of a sudden they're forcing you guys as integrators to ask deeper questions, which is good, but it just holds us all more accountable. So anyway, as part of Masters, we're opening that up to a design course where we can bring in designers. We actually opened it up this year for end users. We had several end users that showed up and went through our design courses there. And we'll continue to evolve those design courses and grow that side of our master's training.
So hang on, I got a question. What's it like to party with 1,100 nerds all at one time?
That was my question, too.
Well, that's a fair
Sorry,
question.
I beat you to it.
You know what the best part is?
Because
is no matter how nerdy we are in that group, you're not a nerd anymore.
No, you're just a dude.
No, you're actually like on the far side of normal. So it's actually kind of cool. I mean, we've all got props on our head, but most of those folks have twin props. So
well said.
It's pretty cool. So it's like, hey, I'm the normal guy in this.
So I will probably never get to go to Crestron Masters for one reason and one reason only.
When it's down the road.
Hey.
I feel like you guys purposely do it this way. I don't know for namesake or not, but the Masters, the golf Masters, is at the exact same time every year when you guys do it. So
that's weird.
It is weird, right?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So no copyright or anything like that. It's just a standard word. I'm just saying that I'm going to be glued to a television or physically in Augusta, Georgia.
What if there was no travel for you to have to go?
He's already going to be traveling, he said.
Oh, you're going to be in Augusta?
Yeah, if I can be. Or
with all those fine Southern gentlemen.
Hey, man, they make the best egg salad sandwich. I'm telling you, it's $1.50 when you go there.
$1.50.
It's $1.50.
An egg salad sandwich shouldn't be more than $1.50.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we're getting off on a tangent. But if you would go to like a Dallas Cowboys game, and they did serve egg salad sandwiches, then it would be like $17.
Yeah, but if it were in Texas, it would be a bacon wrapped egg salad sandwich.
That's true. That's true. Deep fried and bacon wrapped.
Dan deep fried. Yes.
So Masters, that's really cool, and I think we had some presence there as well.
You did. So. Tim was there, and there was a lot of folks from the region. So it was really good. It was a good event. It's a 3-day event. Tons and tons of classes. Crestron puts an awful lot of effort into that event. We actually bring more equipment to Masters historically than we do to Infocom.
And for our customers viewing and listening, how do you find out about Masters? Is it invitation only, or how does that work?
It's a mixed bag. So this year was a little different from last year. we're probably going to change some things up for this next year. But the easiest way is if you're a Crestron certified programmer, you get an automatic invite.
Okay.
On the design path, last year we had some things that we went by in order to get certain integrators there and certain designers there. This year we changed that a little bit, and then we also opened it up to consultants and end users. And this next year we'll see what we're going to change it to. But it typically is invitation only. And
It sounds like it's evolving.
yeah.
Yeah.
But the design side is probably the most exciting part of it because we do go deep under the hood within the Crestron product family. How do these products work? Why this product versus that product type of stuff? And even within our own product mixes, when do you want to use this product? When do you want to use that product? We get into some networking classes, which now, as the last podcast we had, video over IP, networking becomes such a crucial part of our industry that, you don't have to be a network expert, but you need to be able to have the conversation and understand what you're being asked of from the IT professionals that are out there. So, in fact, that was one of the classes was how to communicate with IT professionals.
Oh, cool.
So that we've got to constantly educate our customers in how to be successful out there as the industry changes.
Was it titled "I'm a People Person"?
Yes.
I bring the specs.
I bring the specs to the professionals.
All right, so I have a much more important question outside of that. Do you watch Game of Thrones?
I have not watched Game of Thrones until actually, which is funny, I was at Masters, and so I travel all the time, right?
Sure.
I get to my hotel room. The first thing I do is I find HBO. I turn on the TV, I put it on HBO, and I don't turn it off until I leave the hotel. So
that's a nice HBO plug right there.
Yeah. So, and that way, whenever I come in, there's always something going on. And it's like every now and then it kind of catches you. And I'm watching it and I'm like, what is going on the TV right now? And it keeps popping up GOT. And I'm like, what is GOT? And
have you been living under a rock
for
the last 8 years?
I've been working on Netflix and
all right.
Yeah. So anyway,
I know my friend over here watches Game of Thrones. We're 2 episodes into the final season.
So then I started watching it, and it's like, it's Game of Thrones. Oh, all right, cool, man. I should probably watch this one day. So I waited for Breaking Bad to get on Netflix before I ever watched that. And
and Breaking Bad was amazing, but
I've watched it 3 or 4 times now.
Game of Thrones is I can't even say arguably, it's probably the greatest show that's ever been made.
All right.
Wait, so is this a Tech Talk podcast?
Nope. You're right. You're right.
I'm sorry.
I think he was talking about.
I love Game of Thrones.
To see if Mark, because we're talking about technology today and how technology is always available to us.
Yes.
Right there on your hip, and you've never watched Game of Thrones, so shame on you.
Hold on. I do have something.
I did. I watched it at Masters.
There's a lot to watch, and you probably got to watch it twice. But my brother-in-law actually works for HBO. And shout out, I'm not going to give anything away, I promise. They were legitimately concerned about episode 1 of this season crashing on their streaming platform.
Wow.
And so they were spending copious amounts of money
for the bandwidth
to buy bandwidth from every provider on the planet to make sure that it went off without a hitch, because they still get crap about, I guess, episode 1, season 4 crashed mid-episode. So yeah, they
a lot of you thought that this was not going to somehow segue into technology, but it definitely has.
And there it is. We brought it back around.
Well, and he's kind of over in charge of the streaming platform as a whole.
Oh man, so heads roll.
So it's not. Yeah. And so they get to see the episodes of all of the HBO streamed shows ahead of time to make sure that there's no errors.
Speed dial?
Yeah. So I didn't get to see it ahead. That would be against their rules. But I asked him, I was like, so what if somebody leaks details about any of the shows coming up? Not just Game of Thrones, but any HBO show. HBO show. And he was like,
be so fired.
He said that's probably about the only thing that would be insta fired.
Yeah.
Just don't even come in the next day. Just don't. But
seems kind of reasonable.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I'm not. I don't know that I've ever worked for a place that had something that was you could just count on it. There's not even a discussion.
Okay.
Sorry.
So we got off on a tangent.
I was trying to bring it back to technology. But
Okay, so today,
speaking of streaming,
speaking of streaming, our primary topic today is going to be the words unified communications. And we're going to discuss today what that means to us, what it means to you, and how it can mean different things to different people, and kind of digging through all that minutia to understand what unified communications really can be. So we brought Marc in, obviously, to get his opinion, his professional opinion, being in the industry for so long, and then to talk a little bit about some of the things that Crestron is doing around unified communications to build this whole platform and this agnostic approach, but at the same time giving you all of this growth into the future. So we're pretty excited about that. We're going to share a couple of things and show a video on that. So what I want to ask both of you to start with is your definition of unified communications. And I'll start with Marc. Marc, what does unified communications mean to you?
So unified communications is really taking the meeting, using technology and trying to bring it back to that, person-to-person meeting. So it's using technology to have a meeting that's as close to being in person as you can while utilizing the technology that's available for us today.
Okay. And Corey, unified communications, what do you feel like that means to us in the pro AV industry?
I don't know that I'm as eloquent as Marc, so I just kind of piggyback off his answer.
I practiced that one.
Yeah, I didn't practice. Kind of the same thing, right? Is the idea that no matter where we are or what's available, as long as I have an internet connection, it might be through the display on the wall, the computer on the table, the cameras on the wall, whatever that is, leveraging that to have a meeting or a conversation or a collaboration of some sort where everybody can share ideas equally.
Got it. Okay. So some of the providers of, let's say, end-to-end unified communications, we're talking about software, we're talking about hardware, we're talking about phones and video cameras and IM or instant message and presence. And so some of those major players everyone knows are the Microsofts of the world, the Ciscos, Zoom, who we were talking about earlier before we started the podcast, has become publicly traded.
Yes.
And
Stock
so those big players are making up portions of a unified communication strategy. And they're looking at how they develop their entire suite of offerings and products to give you what's true unified communications end to end. And so, Marc, tell me a little bit about those players and how Crestron really folds in like that.
Yeah, I think that the three that you mentioned specifically, and there's certainly lots of them out there, but the three that you mentioned specifically really are doing some innovative stuff, really, for our industry at least. 10 years ago, you needed a piece of hardware to have a video conference.
Yeah.
Unified collaboration wasn't even a word. We didn't collaborate. We had video calls, basically, right? We all carry video calls today in our pocket.
Well, it's a buzzword that's been grabbed by every industry manufacturer and software developer.
It sounds cool.
Yeah.
It sounds important.
Yeah, UC.
Yeah,
That's a lot of syllables.
Think of all the syllables. It's got to be more important.
I'm a UC engineer.
Yes. So when we look at those three, the three that you mentioned, Microsoft, Zoom, and Cisco, the thing that those three are really making the industry, and remember the end users aware of, is that shift from a hardware meeting to a software meeting. With Microsoft Teams, Skype for Business, with Zoom's interface, and with WebEx, you can do all of those now just based on software.
I have a question. How is Zoom even in the same sentence as Microsoft and Cisco? When we talk about platforms,
Yep.
I mean, how is Zoom being a relatively young company in comparison to Cisco? Because Cisco and Microsoft, in the grand scheme of things, are young too, but are much further developed. How is it, or why is it we're even talking about Zoom on the scale of Cisco or Microsoft?
Well,
How did that happen? Like, how did we get here?
I think, in my opinion, you just look at their record growth. I don't have the exact numbers, but I think I read recently that they've grown something like 200% year after year since their existence, and that's going to disrupt the market and offer them more market share. But you're right. I mean, it's not fair to compare what, let's say, Cisco as an example, Cisco offers as far as the full product set to what Zoom offers. I think Zoom is continually growing and advancing their software to give users more and more.
Yeah.
So I think that, in my opinion, when we're going to customers and let's say that they're a Zoom shop, they're unlocking these things all the time to make life for them a little bit more easier. Zoom doesn't make a phone. They don't make a video camera.
Well, it's either it's for me because
100% software.
Well, I mean, we're talking about UC specifically. We're not talking necessarily about telephony or video hardware endpoints. I mean, it's an all-encompassing brand. And when we talk about web conferencing, specifically Teams and Skype, etc., Zoom is right there at the top. How did they go from essentially zero market share to maybe an equal third?
They're second based on what I've been hearing.
Yeah.
Really?
Microsoft is the largest provider of UC software, obviously with Skype for Business and Teams. Second is Zoom, which is, to your point, Corey, it's just amazing.
So how long is it before a Logitech or a Cisco or a Microsoft scoop them up and just make them part of their umbrella?
Well, I think that they've been down that road before because the folks that created Zoom, this is their second go around in creating a software-based UC platform or meeting platform, and that first one was purchased years ago. And so it'd be interesting to see if they do even allow themselves to be sold. They may not be willing. Their ownership may not be willing to go down that road again. Although everybody's got a price, right? I mean, come on, let's be realistic here.
Yeah. Email me for details about my price. Just putting it out there. No, I didn't mean to get segued into market share conversation, but it's amazing to me that it would be like talking about the major control companies in the market, and then this like third party guy is over here kicking butt, and he's now part of the conversation. But these other two players have been in the market for 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
Well, I think you think outside the box, you disrupt, you have a good marketing strategy. And I think those three things are really what's led them to be one of our topics of conversation today.
Yeah. Well, and they didn't come from outside the industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they came with years of industry knowledge. So they had a roadmap.
It wasn't an accident.
No, it was not an accident. They had a roadmap and they had a plan and they executed it. And boy, I'll tell you what, they started off, 3 years ago. Nobody knew who Zoom was, really. The West Coast did. There was billboards all up and down. There were more Zoom billboards 3 years ago on the West Coast than there were Apple billboards. And, that's whenever we announced our partnership with Zoom at Crestron. I was at Infocom. And being in Texas, I remember thinking, who's Zoom? And within 90 days, it was a weekly conversation. Within 6 months, it was every meeting conversation. And they continue to come up daily in meetings. So they're a legit player in the market.
It was just, when we were kind of going over this, it was second nature that they're part of the conversation.
Yeah.
We didn't even, prior to me asking the question just a minute ago, we never even considered the fact that they're reasonably young.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're, if Cisco's a 20-year-old man, Zoom's like the 5-year-old in the corner throwing blocks.
Yeah.
But wearing a cape.
Yeah.
But wearing a cape.
Yeah, but that 5-year-old's got
The same.
superpowers.
Yeah.
So it begs a question that in our ever-changing world of technology, and let's say we have a small business that's growing rapidly, not unlike Zoom, and they're looking to branch out and find ways to continue to grow as a company, but still be able to communicate just as if I'm sitting here in front of you. How do they choose? How do they pick their strategy to move forward and not put themselves into a corner, because nobody puts a baby into a corner.
Right.
Put themselves into a corner to just set themselves up for changes later that maybe have exorbitant costs or come with major headaches. So how do people choose that?
Well, I think that's where we, as you know, at me as a manufacturer, you guys as integrators, our job is to educate. It's to constantly educate and make people aware of what's going on out there. And I got to go back 5 years ago to get to where I'm going, so bear with me.
Okay.
5 years ago at Crestron, if someone would have approached us and said, I love your hardware and I want to use your hardware, but I really want to use this software with it, they might not have finished the sentence before they were shown where the street's right out there. You should go out there and pedal that out there. But about 2 years ago, we started really executing on the effort of decoupling our hardware from our software. Because of what was going on in the industry, we look up and we had all these hardware manufacturers in the video codec space, for prime example. And now Zoom is considered a major player in this. And what hardware do they make?
Yeah.
They make no hardware.
Well, you don't.
So
you don't have to.
No. Well, but yet you still have to have hardware to pull off these meetings.
Somebody has to.
Somebody has to have hardware. So that's where our challenge is. So us as Crestron, we decided, you know what, we want our hardware to be agnostic. We want to be able to work with whatever software is out there. Because Corey, you bring up a great point. Where was Zoom 3 years ago? Where will it be 3 years from now?
Who will it be 3 years from now?
Who will it be 3 years from now?
And
it's very challenging for us manufacturers.
There are very few standards-based things around web conferencing specifically at this point.
Right.
It's kind of like WebEx works with WebEx and Skype works with Skype. And so then you've had these players kind of jump in the middle and say, okay, well, I'm an agnostic go-between. Blue Jeans being the first example that comes to mind. I will take anything you give me and I'll make it work. Right. So I think that's important, especially for somebody like Crestron, who's the idea is that they're essentially a hardware company.
We are a hardware company.
Now, you're kind of not moving away from that, but you're expanding on that brand by offering some cloud-based softwares, some on-prem softwares that have nothing necessarily to do with your hardware platform, but it accentuates that brand.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're definitely a hardware manufacturer that's software dependent. And if you look, and we'll talk more about the Flex product line here in a little bit about where we're going with that, with our unified communication line. But really, more importantly, I think it's really important that we talk about a company is who a company is, right? And our track record speaks for ourselves. So when we talk about decoupling our hardware from our software, you look at what we did with our scheduling panels. 5 years ago, if you wanted to use a Crestron scheduling panel, you could. It would work with Outlook Exchange, Office, not Office 365 at the time, but it worked with Outlook or Exchange through a Fusion server. Today, it works with 7 different scheduling softwares. We're adding more and more as we go, as we continue, and they direct connect without our Fusion software being involved in it. And we're continuing to move further and further down that road. You look at our virtual control system, doesn't even require our hardware. It's just our control software. Our touch panels working with HTML5 don't require our software. So we're continuing to move to really separate our hardware from our software to make our hardware as agnostic as possible while still maintaining control of the success of it, right? With video conferencing or unified collaborations with UC, it's another area where that becomes, it's as equally as important as our scheduling is, because we don't know who's going to be the big player in 3 years. It may be the same folks. It might very well be the same folks, but it might not be. You never know. If anybody does know who that's going to be, let us know, because that's a great stock tip.
Yeah, send it over again. Right here.
Yeah, it's just so we have to continue to separate those and to try to be agnostic and support every one of them that we can. As a hardware manufacturer, we want to be everyone's hardware manufacturer, obviously.
Yeah, and I think thinking in the future, thinking down the path is always the way that the great manufacturers need to do. They can't think about just today. They can't think about tomorrow. They need to think 10 years from now.
Yes.
At least.
Absolutely.
So what we'd like to do now is we'd like to kind of jump into the Flex line.
Okay.
And before we do that, we're going to show our viewers a video, which I think we watched a little bit earlier. I think it perfectly starts that conversation and
Yes.
really gets through to people to understand what Flex can do. So we're going to show that right now.
Perfect.
Navigating the workday feels like a series of puzzles. You focus more on getting the technology to work than doing your work. It starts at your desk. Your phone is an afterthought. The only people that use it are telemarketers. You get an instant message to review a spreadsheet with your team. Good luck finding a free huddle space. Finally, you found one. You're rewarded with a new challenge, deciphering the mess of cables and remotes. You give up and huddle around a laptop. Frustrated and under-caffeinated, you race off to a video conference with customers. 15 minutes to connect, and half the folks can't see your presentation. This is going great. Late and frazzled, you're off to the executive wing. All eyes are on you. Hope you have a PhD in AV. It's a constant grind. You're battling technology, not the business challenges you were hired to solve. If only the technology would work for you, not the other way around. Introducing Crestron Flex, the first truly unified communications and collaboration platform for the modern workplace. From the workstation to the boardroom, Flex delivers a single, simple, consistent experience. Every time, everywhere. Now your desk phone displays your calendar status and connects you to your team, becoming your personal assistant. You need to review a spreadsheet before the big meeting? Not a problem. You see a huddle space available. Walk in, connect a single cable, and you're sharing your screen. Someone calls from the road, pair your phone, and everyone gets the answers they need. Confident and prepared, you head to the meeting. No getting lost in the maze. Signage guides you to the correct space. In the room, your meeting appears on the screen. With one touch, you're instantly connected to the UK team. The smart soundbar delivers crystal clear audio and video. Relaxed and ahead of schedule, you're off to the training center. Flex simplifies even the most complex spaces, providing the same interface you've used throughout the day. End to end, every space, everywhere in the world. It's stress-free, simple, and consistent. Because it's all built on an award-winning IoT platform, deploying devices is quick and easy. Crestron Flex can continually evolve, so your technology is finally working for you. Only Crestron can deliver an experience like this.
That video, pretty awesome. I think it paints a really good picture of, in a very simplified way, of what customer challenges are. I think what I run into so many times, it doesn't matter if I'm meeting with a company of 10 people or I'm meeting a company of 10,000 people, technology gets in the way as opposed to being an aid to people.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been a necessary evil, for lack of a better term. We when we built our HQ2 over here in Plano, one of the things that we did with those rooms was we made it where you didn't have to touch a button to walk in and have a meeting. We could walk in the room. We've got an occupancy sensor. It turns the room on. You plug in HDMI. We get a video sync. You're presenting. And you've never touched one button. And I used to explain to the people of those rooms before we'd walk in, this is the first time that I have seen where technology gets out of its own way. So it's interesting that you say that, and Flex just kind of takes it to the next level. Corey, did you have something you were gonna say?
I was just thinking about technology getting in its own way, and specifically you see about having to, call a participant, whether it's via their email address or a predetermined meeting room number, or all of these things seem to be still a bit complicated, whether it's WebEx or whether it's Skype. I mean, you've still got to kind of sort of know where you're going
and
before you can get there.
That's really the cool thing about the Flex line. So working with teams as a native relationship, well, we have native control within the Teams environment, the Skype for Business environment. It's a one-touch join. I send out an Outlook meeting request, right? I invite Corey to the meeting. I invite the room to the meeting. As soon as I invite the room to the meeting credentials are already set up in that Flex system. I walk in and the meeting time is sitting right there on the panel. You just hit join and all of a sudden the meeting gets started, and you don't have to overthink it. You don't have to get into all these different, okay, I want to join the meeting, then I want to do this, then I want to.
Yeah, not connecting your computer, dialing into the bridge, entering your passcode, participant ID, all these extra steps that, sometimes a meeting starts at 3:00. It's actually 3:10 before that meeting starts.
Oh, a lot of times it is. In fact,
wonder what the ROI is on
Oh, man.
meeting setup.
I know we actually did a study on this.
You did? Okay.
Yeah, we did a study on this years ago. I say years ago, probably about 4 or 5 years ago. And the average meeting space without technology or without automation took 15 minutes to get the meeting started. No big deal, right? You've got 5 people in the room. Who are you actually taking and putting in that room for that meeting space? Your lowest paid employees or your higher paid employees? Typically, it's your decision makers, which means that they're fairly expensive. So if you've got 4 of them in there for 15 minutes, you just lost an hour of productivity, right?
Well, we've joked around here, if Robert and I and Aaron or Kevin or Nora or any of the other folks who are kind of responsible for making sure the ship stays upright, so to speak.
Yep.
If we're all in a room and we're conversating or even arguing over a topic that's a delta of a couple of $100,
you just spent more than that arguing.
We've spent more than that arguing over it. So it took me a while to kind of learn that and go, you know what? It doesn't matter.
It's $100. Spend the money. It's cheaper to spend it than it go nowhere than for us to stand here and continue to talk about
exactly. So I kind of my question was, and you said you started, or Crestron had done a study on it. Now with UC and with one-touch dialing, and as long as the meetings are scheduled appropriately, how much time are these organizations saving? And what's the average length of these meetings in the first place? We're probably going to have a 30 or 45-minute conversation today, but I'd venture a guess most of these UC meetings, unless they're true collaboration where they're working on a product together for many, many hours, they're meeting for 15 to 45 minutes on average. If they're taking 10 to 15 to get it set up.
Yeah. So now you're doubling that 15-minute meeting.
Right.
Or adding 30% more to your 45-minute meeting.
So I think
it adds up in a hurry.
I think the biggest thing that, we could sell on and what manufacturers and these software developers could sell on is I'm saving you time, thus saving you money. And the pitch has long been
the system's free.
Yeah.
It pays for itself. It's not an expense. It's just you're paying it forward instead of paying it and getting bled out over time with all this dead time from your employees.
Well, you still have to, even today, we still have to explain what the cost savings is. I'm sure Robert remembers, and I remember explaining how much money we could save you with video conferencing. Outfit a couple of dozen rooms across your entire organization, spread out over the U.S.
Yes.
And I can cut your travel costs by at least 50%.
Yes.
What's your travel cost budget this year? $400,000-$500,000?
That room just got real cheap, didn't it? Yeah.
I just need half of that.
Yeah, exactly. Once, because you get to continue to save that year over year.
Right.
So with Crestron Flex, there's a lot of flavors, right?
Mm-hmm. There's 4 different flavors.
Okay.
Today.
And the 4 flavors. So with Flex, I mean, are there really competitors in the market that are producing something like the Flex line?
There's nobody producing anything like the complete Flex line. So I want to talk about those offerings in a minute, but the other one I want to talk about that popped up in the meeting was Microsoft's IoT Partner of the Year. So Crestron was awarded Microsoft's Internet of Things Partner of the Year. There's 34,000 people or companies that were eligible for that.
Wow.
That's a legit award, right? And a lot of it has to do with the Flex line, but the other part is the XIO Cloud part that was brought up in there. And that's probably another conversation that we need to have is XIO Cloud at some point. But that's a big deal. So our partnership with Microsoft, it's solid. It's been there for a long time. It's something we have worked on for years and years and years to get there. And yes, so part of the Flex line is phones. We know we have Teams endpoints that function as phones. You can, I have people all the time, well, can I call and order a pizza from that? Yes, if you like pizza, you can call and order a pizza from that, it'll make a phone call. I mean, Teams supports all of that. So we've got the phone, we've got the Mercury for the small, 4 to 6, maybe 8 people meeting space. We've got our soundbar system that honestly it was built for a room of about 12 to 14, and I don't know what our engineers did, but the microphones in it are phenomenal. And we've seen it deployed. We've deployed it ourselves in rooms up to 25, to almost 30 people, and it works great. So it really takes that meeting room up a notch without having to spend a lot of money. And then we have the C system, which allows you to get into the full custom room, which is, so if we look at the Flex line, really the goal was, and they said it in the video, was to go from the desktop to the executive boardroom with the same user experience. Because what do people say? I don't know how to get a meeting started. How do I do this? If we can give them the same user interface or the same user experience across all of those platforms, then everybody knows how to have a meeting. And that return on investment becomes instant the day you start deploying this Flex product line. The other thing that we've done is we've made it agnostic. We want this line to be able to run multiple things because, as we said, we don't know where the future holds. I mean, today Microsoft is the worldwide leader in it. Personally, I don't see that going anywhere. They're just so big. Everybody in 3 or 4 years will have a Teams account. Now, whether they choose to use it or not is within that organization.
All of our users here have Teams accounts.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's probably underutilized for us today since
I see that a lot.
We've kind of adopted personally, Cisco WebEx. But when we upgraded our Office 365 account,
you got Teams.
Everybody got Teams
magically. Yeah.
And we use it. We use it for testing. We use it for a lot of things, but has yet to have been adopted as a primary business function for us.
It's the first thing I look at every morning whenever I turn my laptop on is my Teams.
Yeah.
Because I'm part of probably 30 different channels currently, and somebody somewhere has entered something in the middle of the night. That was a question. They woke up and said, "Oh, I got to post this real quick," because it gives you that constant chat window, if you will, amongst all of your teams. We use it that way. We use it for all of our meetings at Crestron. I'm not a power user of Teams, but I'm a heavy user of Teams for sure. 5 months ago, companies would say, because I meet with end users as well as integrators, and they would say, "No, we're a X house. We only use this for our collaboration. That's all we're going to use. So I don't even want to talk about Teams or Skype for Business or anything." Okay, that's fine, because we have products that'll go around all the other stuff as well. So let's talk about that and how we can leverage the Crestron product line to give you the best experience using those solutions. And about 2.5 months ago, almost every one of them that told me 6 months ago they didn't want to talk about it said, "Yeah, can you come back and let's have that Teams conversation?"
Just happening organically.
Yeah. Well, it's being pushed from the Microsoft side, and that's a good thing. So you asked about, we kind of left that question. Do other people make products in this area? Yes, they do. There are other folks that make phones. There are other folks that make a little one-room meeting system, but there is not one other manufacturer that gives you the exact same user experience, user interface across every one of the platforms, from that boardroom all the way down to the desk. We're the only one that can deliver all of that end to end in one solution.
Well, and one of the things that Robert and I is important to us in these tech talks is that it doesn't turn into a giant commercial, basically.
Sure.
And this is kind of starting to sound like a Flex commercial, right? But I want to make sure everybody understands that there are a very limited number of players in the agnostic space as it relates to UC. They exist, but cell phones, for instance, there are a number of manufacturers who offer cell phones. So if we were having a conversation about cell phones, it would be easy to stay kind of down the middle track. But when we're talking about an engine that bridges Teams and Skype and Zoom, etc., there are very few. So this ends up kind of sounding like a Flex commercial, because what other product are we going to talk about, aside from maybe a Logitech-based product, which still is not as agnostic? And I think that's a challenging conversation for this particular tech talk.
Well, I think what you brought up is a good point. So as an integrator, we look at Flex as being that solution that we can deploy to all different meeting spaces, like you were talking about. But in addition to that, to think outside the box, we can pair this with an automation system, and now not only do we have our one button press to join a meeting, but let's say that I want to conveniently sit there at my seat and lower the shades or lower the lighting or use a document camera. I can utilize the exact same thing that's already in front of me and go and use that for a control panel as well. And I think that's a huge deal for customers to understand that, we can make the rooms as simple as you need, but some of those rooms are going to require a little bit more automation.
A lot, yeah. It's about 1 out of 10 is what we see.
Yeah.
And Taurus is probably more than 1 out of 10. I mean, being a design build firm, we're heavy on automating things for our folks because, again, like we talked about earlier, if the user experience isn't good, regardless of the technology, you see hardware-based video conferencing, simply a TV on a wall with a cable on the table. If it's not automated, people start to shy away.
Yes.
So Robert and I and the rest of the team here have really pushed automation as a function. So all the way down to the bottom of the list, to the top of the list, we're offering automation for that very reason.
Yeah. Well, and you said a word, user experience. To me, see, for years, the user experience was how they use the room. Anymore, and we alluded to this earlier with the enterprise partners or the end users hiring their own AV professionals.
Yeah.
Part of their user experience is maintaining and supporting those rooms as well after the fact. And so, that's one of the areas where as you get into supporting these multiple types of spaces where there's meetings going on, who do you call for help whenever things go bad? Because look, our products never break, right? I mean, every manufacturer wants to say that, right? We never have problems with our products. Nobody
it's technology.
Ever
It works 100% of the time.
Exactly. And so, but when things go bad, that's your opportunity to fall flat on your face or to shine. And if you have 17 different folks you have to call to get the solution for that, you've really shifted the odds closer to falling on your face.
That's right.
Whereas if there's one to call for, no matter where that failure is, you've shifted the odds towards success. And that's one of the reasons that we really like our position in these spaces. So turn it back to a commercial course.
And just for our viewers, to confirm, as far as the different platforms that Flex works with, can you explain that a little bit for us?
Yeah, so right now the Mercury is agnostic.
Okay.
You can work with any software platform that you want out there. Or it can be native Skype for Business or native Teams or native Zoom.
Okay.
So it'll work with those three natively without having to bring any other hardware piece into the room. Okay. The soundbar, we have a dedicated Teams and Skype for Business one. So, and we have one that's agnostic, and you can use the soundbar with control to use any of the other software platforms that you want. And then in the C series, which is the full custom one, you can do whatever you want with that. But the touch panel that comes with the B, the soundbar, and the C is our standard touch panel. But in the configuration of the touch panel, literally when it boots up, it says to launch applications, and one of the applications is Skype for Business, Teams, or Zoom. And you press it, and it launches the touch panel right in that mode. You enter your meeting credentials, and you're up and running. If you need to go custom because you're using one of the other software platforms that are out there, then you go into User Project and you just write it the way that we've done for years.
Perfect. So I think, is there anything else we wanted to add to that? I do want to share with the users a couple more bits of information, but is there anything else we want to touch on the Flex?
So I think that's it for now. I mean, well, I think we do want to talk about where we can see it.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. That's a great idea. So Crestron over in Plano.
We can see it at our location in Plano. Any of our regional offices today scattered around the country is more than likely going to have it. I'll be surprised if we have any offices that don't have it. I know we've got it in California. We've definitely got it in Chicago. Atlanta for sure has it. Virginia. So any of our regional offices, Arizona, anywhere that you're at, just reach out to your local regional office and they will have it.
I think you meant reach out to Taurus Technologies and we'll be happy to set up a meeting.
We would love to have people reach out to Taurus Technologies and set
That's
up
what
a
I
meeting
thought.
to come to Plano and take a look at it. Yes.
We also show several other products here for testing purposes. And so it really doesn't matter to us which location you want to go to. If you want to see some other technologies, we have them here. And I think it's also important to point out that we also have some upcoming shows, probably the biggest here in the United States, InfoComm.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you guys will be showing that as well as a lot of other cool products, maybe even some new stuff, right?
Oh, there'll definitely be some new stuff. Yeah. And Flex will be one of the highlights of InfoComm, but there will be several others as well. There always is. And, to your point earlier about you guys having it here for testing and other things, that's something that you guys do that's pretty unique. Years ago when we had a product that was launched, and I'm talking to Corey, I'm like, come on, let's put this in. And Corey's
I
like,
think I know this product.
oh, yeah, you do. And Corey's like, well, we need to test it first. And I'm like, great. And so we worked it out and we brought it over here for testing. And I remember thinking at the time, that makes the success and so much easier down the road to know that you're going to put in the time ahead of time to really vet this product. Like, is it a good product? Okay, checkbox. Is it a good product for our customers and the way we do things? That's a different checkbox. And I really like the fact that you guys do that.
Well, we have Flex set up in the Cowboys conference room right now,
Yep.
and been beating it up for the last 2 weeks.
And you weren't kidding. The built-in microphones on the soundbar
soundbar?
portion, they are pretty phenomenal.
I was pleasantly surprised.
And we get all the way out of that room into the hallway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't test it out of the room, but anywhere I stood in the room
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
really pretty good.
Yeah. We did a great job with those.
Did you guys
microphones.
partner with somebody on those, or did you?
I'm not sure what we did with those microphones, to be honest with you. I've heard varying stories back and forth, and so that I could maintain plausible deniability, I've never asked the product manager what it is
fair
we
enough.
did.
So I'd like to thank Marc again for joining us. We really appreciate having you here. Your professional opinions, your time in the industry are very valuable to us, and we hope that the listeners got an opportunity to learn a little bit more about unified communications, how Crestron is now got the Flex line that can fit into a lot of their solutions. So we're really excited about that. We'd also like to get your feedback. If you have any questions for us, you want to hear more about unified communications, you want to hear more about Crestron Flex, or any of the other styles of technologies that are out there in the industry, give us a call or shoot us an email at info@taurustechinc.com. And again, we appreciate you joining us on Taurus Tech Talk. Y'all have a great day.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.